Hello, lovely people. It is Thursday. Thursday is Thursday, right? Thursday, yeah. I'm here on the right day. Thursday, February 8th, 2024. And going to work on some stuff today for the Prayer's Handbook. This is the latest Kickstarted D&D TTRPG book I've put together. Successfully funded. And I've added a ton of stuff. I had one of those little epiphanies. Yeah, you get them from time to time. And so I decided to add a bunch of monsters. So a lot of work, but it's good. And I've had to juggle some things in the book. It's only 32 pages. All the zines I've put together are 32 pages, but it's taken some doing to squeeze everything in. But so far so good, and I'm really happy with them. They're silly. I would have been kicking myself if the book had come out and I hadn't included them. But we're going to jump back. I want to point the correct way to work on this character here. I was working on it a couple of weeks ago, took a break from it. It's sort of what I do when I hit a little bit of a roadblock. I switch gears, I work on something else. But I hope everyone's having a lovely day. We are streaming to the Twitches and the YouTubes. So what you see here is you see this blue outfit. This is sort of a separate piece. I kind of took I sculpted the main figure and then fused those pieces together, and then I sort of adjust those. Once I fuse them, I basically sculpt the clothes out of the shapes of the figure. That way, even though the figure is going to be covered with drapery, you still have a sense of the form underneath all that. So there's a knee, and hopefully you'll see that knee hinted at through the clothing. I think it makes the thing look cooler. It makes it look more like there's a figure under there and not just a ghost with loose billowing fabric. But I hope everyone's having a lovely day. The work on the Prayer's Handbook is going very well. I'm very happy with it so far. But so far so good. I didn't import a sketch of this guy into the program. I probably should have done that. Let's do that. One of the things I've done with the stream is I've often sacrificed some steps because it's not as telegenic, it's not as good to stream, but I don't mind taking those steps now. There's something I'll be talking about a little bit later on once a few more folks show up about the future schedule of the stream. I think I'm going to change things up a little bit. I want to retool some stuff, and okay, let's do a screen capture of that. What I'm doing is I'm taking a sketch that I did in Procreate. I have it in the Photos program. I'm cropping it down so that I can then import it into Nomad Sculpt as reference. I don't often do that because usually they can be really loose sketches. What have I done with this fella? There we go. Okay, and we're back in business. Cave, good to see you. So, again, the work on the Prayer's Handbook is going very well. I have added some monsters to it. It was something that occurred to me over the weekend. And I was kind of kicking myself for not even being able to talk about these things during the campaign, because I think they're things that would have excited people. Might have even brought more people to the campaign. But as for the campaign itself, the technical side of things, the campaign, the Kickstarter thing wrapped up about 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. Backer Kit has gone and sent out surveys. They've collected those surveys, and now they're doing the part where they are asking people to lock their orders down so I can order things like the t-shirts. I worry that the t-shirts will take the longest to be produced. So that's why I got to get that number locked down. That's why they're asking everybody. I'm meh. Things are as usual lately. Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was something that would remotely interest you, but there was a gig with, you may have seen it a million different places, a gig with Hasbro, real job security, with Hasbro looking for an event person. I think I mean a lot of traveling and stuff like that, and coordinating travel with people. I'm not sure if that's something you're interested in, but I did see that was going around. It's only a couple of days old now, I think. Because I'd love to see you find a place in the game world, because it sounds like you were close to that sort of position a few times, and it just really seems to suit, your background, your interests. Be great for those things to come together. I'm gonna hide this for a moment. That sphere, we'll call that collar. Oops. That blobby shape is the sort of thing that we will create the collar off of it. So basically we create a shape and then we sculpt off of that, and then we get rid of the thing. It's kind of a mold. So we create the mold and then sculpt the fabric off of it. And I'm going to do that for the entire figure here. The figure's fairly close. I think the character looks a bit more malevolent in the sketch. I'm okay with this guy looking a bit more stern, I think. He says that and then immediately rethinks everything. Yeah, I like that face a lot. Marcus, nice to see you. Yeah, I was trying to locate it. I think I was able to find it on Indeed or something like that, but it was a real pain in the butt to try to paste that through the messaging system we talked to each other through. Somehow trying to copy it from the browser into the chat box was not working all that well, but I thought, next time I'll talk to you. Marcus, so good to see you. Oh, good, Cave. Good. I'm not sure if it's a fit, but I know it's... since you've applied for things that you fit perfectly for, I imagine you're going to get a job for which you are not an exact fit. He's perfect for this. It's suspicious. I think in the sketch his hair's a bit more voluminous. Like we get a little more syndrome from The Incredibles going on in the sketch. I wonder if I can do that. But I think for the rest of February, I will be live streaming less. I don't think we'll be doing our Tuesdays, Thursdays. I want to retool this whole layout here on Twitch. I'm still trying to get the hang of this balancing the ability to keep an eye on chat and the ability to do my work at the same time. Because it's like, I know that some people are able to do both, and it doesn't seem to impact them at all. They're able to just keep working. But the second I'm, I get caught up in the work, and then there's discussion happening, and then Cave is giving me grief for not commenting on, not replying to questions, and so I think my template for this kind of thing was looking at some of the other cartoonists and artists whose work I like, where they work on a particular project and are able to maintain that kind of conversation. I don't know if I am. Okay, I can't quite sculpt that right now. I think maybe my assumption is that I think it needs more of a pompadour. Let's do that while we're here. So I don't think it means being on less. I just think it means being on, not trying to do it in such a regimented way where right now I find myself trying to prepare projects for the stream. Like the other Thursday, I just had to take the day. I couldn't stream at all because I was working on editing and writing, and there's a big part of that's a big part of my to-do list right now, but it's just not something I can do on the stream. I've seen some people do that sort of world building and discussion while chatting with folks, but often that's more collaborative, and that's not how I write. So I basically put on music, usually music without lyrics, something that's just orchestral or soundtrack or symphonic or something like that, and have that on the background, and then I can write. But anything that's intrusive in any way, I don't know how anyone's able to stay on track while doing that, unless they're like riffing with the audience or something like that. Like a crowd, if you're doing a crowdfunding thing or something on Patreon or something, I get that. Hey Matthew. Yeah, it's a good one. It was a good one, I think. Because I don't know if you're like, when I'm doing these things, especially given that I'm in kind of it's a environment where there's lots of iteration and lots of homebrew stuff, and there is lots of people who are on a whim just uploading whatever they just came up with 10 seconds ago to Drive-Thru-RPG or to the DM's Guild or I don't know, Kindle Direct. You know, you could just upload your stuff, and so when I come up with something, I think, oh, this will be a good idea. I have to immediately go and look, has anyone else done this before? And so far, this seems like clear sailing. So I'll share more of that stuff. I think it's going to be a separate video or separate project, but I don't think I'm going to be streaming on such a set schedule. This Tuesday, Thursday. Originally, I was doing 4 to 8, kind of mirroring David Peterson's schedule. But I just don't think that's conducive to the way I work. It's been nice with the sculpting. If I was just doing sculpting and not on deadline, it's fun. But I'm on deadline a lot, and this year's going to be a lot of deadlines. I'm still doing educational comics work, but it seems like this is there's already some belt tightening going on because people are uncertain about the future. Rightly so. And so this happens in waves, and so I'm hoping that but the nice thing is I'm not counting on that anymore. I'm really kind of, this year is going to be all about creating a livable wage just off of Patreon and Kickstarter, so crowdfunding and Patreon, and so far so good. I'm still doing work for my clients, my web design clients. Oops, I do wrong. I have a few small clients who basically keep me on retainer to function as a kind of a superintendent, a groundskeeper for their websites to make sure things don't blow up. And if things do blow up, they can call me and I can help them out. And usually it's for either charities or causes that I believe in, and that works out real well. I can feel good about myself. It's like, it's hard to, and when the world's on fire and you're spending all your time sculpting monsters, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're pitching in. So some of those projects I get to feel a bit more helpful. Okay, so let's build that. I'm gonna collar shape. This is the shape we're going to try to build that wispy collar behind the figure's head. But I want to do more YouTube videos. There's been a bunch of comments lately and very kind words and even a jump in subscriptions. And I also want to be able to focus more on the middle age. I'm having this bit overlap the hair because this shape that we're creating, we're going to pop that shape of the torn bit of fabric and collar off of it. So we want it to overlap the back of the head so that when it pops out, it will be connected. The more things that are connected, the more I'm in 3D printing, the more I want there to be structural overlap, especially if the piece is going to be something that I want to offer to people for printing. And this is one of those things. If it was just for how it looks, like when I originally sculpted the buzzkill and the kegger from Intoximancy, they didn't, almost nothing was attached. I had a camera angle, things had to look good from that angle, and it was like the head was positioned here and the shoulders were back here. They just looked right next to each other. If I wanted to make the head look larger, I just moved it closer to the camera. I didn't care about a physical sculpt, and then later on I was like, okay, can I turn this thing into a printable sculpt? I've still not had any luck printing it because the arms are so spindly. I think if I print it, I have to print it much, much larger. So, anywho, let's get this collar. We'll try this. So, and I'm working at Nomad Sculpt. Anyone who's popping in for the first time, this is a program called Nomad Sculpt. It's on an iPad. I'm working on an iPad Pro, 4th generation. It's a couple of years old now. So I'm going to use a lasso tool. And on this shape, I'm going to just draw what I think is torn, what would hopefully look a bit like torn fabric. This creature is a sort of what a corrupted metadomain cleric. So for this book, it was all about clerics who believe this is all just a game. I kind of imagine this as a sort of Moriarty character from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Someone who thinks, if this is all just a game, then what are we? And maybe we should just end the game. Maybe we should just be very cynical about it all. In each one of the books I've done so far, and hopefully for all of them, I'm trying to come up with not just this fun player class, but also... Have I done that wrong? I have done that wrong. Interesting. I was drawing through the object, so it was affecting both sides here. So I'm going to attempt to fix what I just did by front-facing vertex only and the eraser. So I'm just going to try to cut off these pieces. That should hopefully remove them on one side, but not both. Siobhan of Max Powers Comics, which you can read on WEBTOONs, was here last week talking about, oh, I should have a video on how to sculpt. And I'm like, I wouldn't know where to begin. I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing. Just kind of fumbling my way. Okay. So that's basically the shape, which I think would be the collar behind his head. So we will save, and I will extract this. How we doing? Okay, select mask. There's no preview of what it will look like. You just have to hit the button and see how it looks. Not what I was expecting. It inverted the shape. Interesting. There we go. So I will turn that piece invisible. I will make that one opaque. We get a sense of what that collar looks like. So I don't know if you saw what I did. I had a spherical shape that I superimposed. I made it translucent so I could see where the face and the neck was and all those things underneath it. Then I, on that shape, drew something, and then we popped a piece off, kind of like I think of candy coating on candy. A little bit of magic shell, and you just pops off, and then you have a piece. Now, right now, it seems a little too wispy. Like, that's so thin, it'll look great. It'll look fine for the illustration. It'll look like fabric, but if someone tried to 3D print that, it will fall apart. That's going to be like one layer of filament thick. So, for their sake, I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to thicken this up a little bit. So it might be ridiculous for, you know, if this was going to be an animated show or something like that. If you were going to, and as far as I know, there's no tools for taking. Well, I take that back. There must be some way. There's no tools for rigging inside Nomad Sculpt, but there's no reason why you couldn't sculpt the thing in Nomad Sculpt, then bring it over into another program and then rig it there, maybe? I don't know. I don't know anything about animation. Okay, so opaque. Yeah, it looks a little chonky, but that's okay. Boy, I really like that bit right there, but I don't think it works. Specifically this area here. I feel like that area is kind of neat, but I really prefer to taper. So this program also has 1,000 levels of undo, which I can't say enough good things about. Selection mask, unmask. So I'm just going to go in here and try to remove that bit. And from the other side too. And hopefully it will look like, at some point it'll look like it kind of tucks into the garments. Just trying to fill some gaps here. And anyone who is checking out the Pencil to Pencil show over on YouTube that I'm co-host with Mike Manley and Jamar Nicholas, as Mike was in the hospital at the end of last year and through January, through parts of January. We're working on a schedule to come back, so anyone looking for that, I will let everyone know as soon as I know. But fingers crossed soon. And those events are, those streams are on YouTube Wednesday nights. Wow, it's still not great. All right, I'm just going to mold it into the, I'm going to cut it here, I think. Using the trim tool and the lasso tool. And I'm going to remesh. Oh, that's pretty high already. And smooth it out. I think he needs a much shorter collar, which could go right around the neck. So to do that, I'm going to clone the neck. Move it away from everything else. Solo it. You can just see it was just an egg shape that I put beneath the figure's head and just kind of mushed it around to look kind of close to a neck. I really wasn't all that concerned with the detail of it. So I'm using the smooth tool here to smooth the whole thing out, at least the lower part of it, which is what I care about. Then I will use the selection mask tool. I'm going to turn the front facing vertex only off. And then I'm going to try to draw like this. So it'll look like that. So underneath the shape you see this. That was the piece we duplicated. And let's see if I can fix this back here. You can hear my cat yelling at me. This has been a recurring theme lately. Alright. And then for that, we'll extract out as well. Oh, too much. Better. So we took that another shape, we softened it, and then popped the collar out. Oh, Cave, that's awesome. I will take a look for sure. Cave is working on a Kickstarter. I don't know how much you're comfortable with me talking about it, Cave. But Cave I'm gonna just jump in. I'm gonna jump in with both feet. Cave cooked up a book called Flavor Text Adventures, and it's fantasy stories coupled with recipes, and it's awesome. It is interesting because friends, anyone who's in the creative space at all, you go to Comic Cons, you go to gaming conventions and stuff like that, someone's going to say, hey, take a look at my stuff. And the quality varies. There's a thing called Sturgeon's Law, which is like, I think it's Sturgeon's Law, 90% of everything is garbage. They might have used profanity. But there's a large noise to signal ratio when it comes to stuff. Because not all of it's there yet. Some of it's still in a very early stage. And I know Cave online, I see his stuff. I meet him, he's like, take a look at this. And you're like, you're kind of, okay, open-minded. Let's see what this is. And it's good. It really is good. So you never know. You think it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, let's see what recipes and fantasy together. It's really funny. It's this cool book because it's funny and it's got recipes. And it's an odd duck like that. Because I think even if you just wanted good recipes, I think they're in there. And if you just wanted good stories, I think they're in there. And then even adds 5e stuff. So if you want to take something out of the story, or it's really funny and really clever. I don't know how many people could do it. You said like, and when it says recipes, I thought it would be like a stat block. You know, take 2 eggs, a little bit of butter, and some description, like you'd see if you printed out a recipe online. No, it's photos, step-by-step photos. It's excellent. I'm telling my story my way. But that's just it. It's so many. It's doing 3 things, and that's really interesting. If it had done 2 of those things, it would have been great. But it's doing 3 things, so it's even better. Oh, and it has a Larry Elmore cover. Oh yeah, and a Larry Elmore cover. Ridiculous. If you don't know who Larry Elmore is, you actually do know who Larry Elmore is. Dungeons and Dragons artwork. I don't know if there's lag, Cave, but I do like. There was one of my favorite things in the Middle Age, which is my webcomic, middleagecomic.com. It's WEBTOON's Tapas, GoComics, and my own website. There's a sequence where Waddle Bottom, the Lord of all Ducks, is delivering a map to our hero, and at some point, he coughs up. He's I think he's dying, and he's not dead. Spoilers, no spoilers. He's not dead. I'm not going to kill the duck character. He's the best part of the story. He coughs up a map, and it's on the screen the whole time. Like he coughs it up, and you can see it. There's characters are standing in grass, and there's the scroll on the ground that he coughed up. Our hero doesn't see it yet. But they're basically, the characters are talking for a number of episodes, and I'm releasing this a week at a time over on WEBTOONs, maybe twice a week at that point. But there was one commenter who kept getting angry. They were yelling that that why didn't Sir Quimp pick up the scroll? And the angrier they got, the more I wanted to string this scene along and maybe not even pick up the scroll. Okay, so we have the neck bit that's there, which I don't think I need anymore. That would just get in the way. And what I think I want to do is using the selection mask tool, I'm going to try to create a shape that I can hopefully blend that collar into so it has more of a interesting V and they kind of hopefully melt together in a way. I'm hoping the Larry Elmore cover can convince legends like the likes of Steve Conley to contribute. I think it can. I think it will. Well, if Mr. Elmore is involved, fine. And it's a good piece too. Mr. Elmore did an excellent illustration. Not that there's any chance that he wouldn't, but I have seen projects in the comics world where it said with a Frank Frazetta cover, and it was like they took a sketch of that Frank Frazetta did of something else that they had they purchased the original art and had the rights to use. Maybe they talked to the Frazetta estate and they used that as the cover, and it's like, yeah, technically that's a Frank Frazetta cover. This is not a technically Larry Elmore cover. This is a Larry Elmore cover. It is awesome. So I'm currently drawing on that blue shape underneath everything else. The idea is to oops. All right, we'll try extracting that. All right, folks, I will be right back. I need a quick break. My cat is yodeling. Kate, yeah, you showed me the I think you showed me the cover before, during one of our chats. But yeah, it's on the Kickstarter page too. It's great. All right, folks, I will be right back. Fantastic art gallery of stuff here from people like David Peterson, legendary D&D artist Jeff D, Marty Bowman, Jeremy Vinar, tons of great people. No, that's my cat. He's being a jerk. I'll be right back. And we're back. Where was I? was definitely my cat. I have two cats. Like I mentioned before, I have to kind of keep them separated. Sadly, they're siblings, but one is always medicated with something to help the cat from ever having more seizures. So far, it's been like 4 years without a seizure, but they still take the medication, and so they're always kind of they're at a massive disadvantage if the other one, which has kind of a Klingon warrior approach to cohabitation, if the two of them go at it, the doped up one is at a tremendous disadvantage, and so I have to keep them separated. You know, one's playing tag and the other one's playing the Hunger Games. I've never seen that. I've never read the books. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm old, Gandalf. Alright, I'm going to try this. I'm going to use clay to build up those areas. I want to basically smooth those two areas into each other, if I can. Oof. Nope. Before I do that, I have to watch out for those bits up there. I'm gonna remove those. They're kind of cool, but they're getting in the way. Telemon, how are you? Of course, I finally get on and notice the time. Hopefully, be back once I get back for. It's good to see you, man. I'm not sure if I missed you, if you're already out the door, but progress on the Prayers Handbook is going very well, and I'll be adjusting my streaming schedule. So it probably will affect you least of all, given your obligations. But I'm looking at probably streaming more often, but not for quite these lengths of time, and not on fixed days the way they are right now. So I'm hoping it gives me more time to work on the projects that are, you know, ostensibly why everyone's here. Not to look at my face, but to get more cool stuff out in the world. And this year is really, it's important that I get more stuff out in the world. So I think more regular popping on more regularly, but also that's interesting. It's a real divot. I'm going to try to fill that divot in with some clay here. Interesting. Okay, there we go. Smaller brush. But so far there's a lot of subscriptions, or a lot of people signing up to be notified when Nibblemancy goes live. That's nice to see. Last I saw 140 something people. But oh my goodness, what is that? Where'd that break come from? I hate when that happens. There's really nothing I can do to that I'm aware of to fix that problem. Like, there's not like a tool where I can select an area and then just it'll fill that gap in. I think I have to create a patch. So I will clone this shape, use the trim tool, flip it so the only part that I keep is the part that I outlined. And so you can see it, I'm going to change its color. So it's right on top of each other. That's why you see it partly there, because the two bits are just overlapping. And then I'm going to change its pivot point and try to slide it over the gap area. And I don't care if it's weird on the underside of it. It probably fell apart because I didn't do front-facing vertex only. I was just kind of mushing the whole thing everywhere. Undoubtedly, that's where the problem crept in. So we'll remesh. We'll resample the main color. Force paint it all, and then we'll smooth it out. That's the only way I know to fix a gap in the... oof! That is really all fakakta under there. That's why it fell apart. Where those two areas were overlapped, got really thin, and then it created a hole. Damn it. Okay, front-facing vertex only. Let's fill these gaps. And this part goes under the figure, so I'm less concerned about it. But because we have front-facing vertex, none of this stuff we're doing underneath will affect the top side. Only the side you're facing. Boy, that hole doesn't want to fill. Fair enough. We'll have to do just what we did a moment ago. We'll clone the shape. For simplicity's sake, we'll change its color. We will trim it, but flipping the effect. We'll center the pivot point and then scooch it over. Maybe even bring it out a little bit. And then we will fuse those two pieces together. Great. I want to have a smaller collar underneath that whole thing. try something. Turn off that collar shape for a moment using the main dress form. We're going to clear off the previous selection. Wonder. I wonder what cutting a shape in that would make. That creates a real problem, of course, but I wanted to see what that would do. Alright. Let's go back to the dress form. Let's cut out a piece here using the lasso tool. Interesting. I'm going to try to trim that down a little bit. Turn off flip. Save and sip some coffee. How we doing? Alright, I'm going to clear that mask on this guy, and I'm going to create another. This is going to be like a lower V shape. I think it's going to go over the shoulder. Oh, let me clean this up a little bit. Using the trim tool and the lasso, I'm going to cut some shapes more like torn fabric out of the corners there. That'll give me more room to hopefully put some more layers here. So using the selection mask tool, this will basically go down past the abs. And now where that goes under that kind of beige color, we won't be able to see what it looks like, but well, we'll guess. And once it's in place, we can go back and make changes. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. So we were drawing on it, we couldn't quite see what we were doing. So here it is now. Now I can go back using unmask to cut sections out to make them look a little more torn. And then continue it along the back, assuming it's going to go over the shoulder. We can play with this to have it pop out. I had some trouble in the past with 3D printing some pieces when, specifically in the plates of like the, it wasn't a piece I think most people saw, it was a gift. But it also came up in the Metadomain Cleric sculpt. There are armored shoulder plates, and if there's a gap underneath them, the printer will want to fill in it, will need something to support those things that are in the air. And so it'll run more supports up when it otherwise wouldn't. If I just simply flattened it to the shoulder, if the plate was firmly connected all around, all the way through and through, odds are it wouldn't require an extra set of supports, which takes more plastic, more filament needs to be printed, and more chance at failure. The key about a lot of 3D printing is that, seems to be, again, I'm new to it, but the more you print, the more chance of failure. So if a piece requires very little support, like those books that I currently, these are on my Patreon, the files for printing these dice boxes, like with the instructions where the magnets go. You know, I don't think I put any recommendations on the stain that I use to make the paper look like paper, but these print without supports. They print in 5 pieces. One of them prints upside down specifically so it doesn't need supports. Like the paper, there's a few bits of curled paper that curl down as if, you know, as if gravity were affecting it. The trouble is, if you do that, then it needs a support to hold it up because it's like a little ledge. But if you print it upside down, suddenly it grows outward, and there's filament underneath it that can support it. So how you print things and all that stuff, the more I've learned in the last 2 months of having a 3D printer has made my sculpts a lot more sturdy and hopefully easier to print. I think they take less chances, sadly. I think the original sculpts I made were all, you know, they had the virtue of no knowledge whatsoever. So they were like, yeah, I'll just have crazy stuff hanging off the figure, and like the Intoximancer has a magic book that's hanging from a belt, and there is a gap between the Intoximancer's rib cage and abdomen and that belt. There's no reason for that gap to be there. That belt could have laid flat across the belly and it would have looked perfectly fine. I would have slid the book back a little bit. It would have adjusted where the cape goes a little bit, but it would have printed so much easier. The idea that you have a gap in there is just asking for trouble. So it's things like that that I've tried to be more conscious of as I'm working on these things. There's little things, like you can see here as an example, that boot that's resting on that keg. If I had had the tip of the boot just flat on the keg, I'm out of focus. Help me, Obi-Wan. Having that boot flat on the keg, it would have printed much more stably. Stably? Stabluy? Instead, it is, you know, it has no support, so you can see that little bit of loose filament where the filament had nothing to hang on to. Cave is back, everyone. I told you this day would come. As was foretold in the prophecy, he has returned. So my streaming schedule will change. It's not going to be fixed anymore. It'll be as I can do it. We are printing through this object accidentally. But there'll be more often. And I'm hoping to have totally redo the interface here. It started haphazardly, and it's only gotten more haphazard. And I'm excited to go back to some of the plans I had when I first started this stream. I'm going to cut this thing in half if I can. I'm going to use the split tool and, oopsie, and a lasso tool. And this should turn it into at least 2 pieces. And then I can cut through this thing without affecting the reverse side. And it will give me more time to visit other people's streams and learn from them instead of just trying to play catch up all the time. When I first started streaming, my schedule was such that I was able to stream almost all the time. I'm going to remerge these together. Voot. I had one of those notes as I was about to go to sleep last night where I'm like, oh, I've got this idea. Oh, this is going to be good. I don't need to write it down. I'll remember it in the morning. Gone. Gone forever. Have I learned? No. And I'm not about to start. I need to have one more kind of bit of support underneath that collar. I keep that original collar shape. Oh, I already mangled it. And that's all merged together now. That's all messed up. I'm going to reduce the mesh of this thing and then try to soften it so it's smoother. Just keep remeshing it and then smoothing it, and when the smoothing stops working, then I remesh it again. Because I'm just trying to even that mesh out along with the top of it, and every once in a while you've smoothed it as much as that mesh will allow, so remeshing it lets you kind of reset that so you can work on it some more. Okay. So using the selection mask tool, we will create some shapes under here, smaller than the main hood part of it that we have there. Oh, let me redo that. I'm going to remesh it. I was kept lowering the mesh. That would make it easier to smooth out, but now that we've got it where we want it, I'm going to mesh it at a much higher level, and that means that I can get more detail in these kind of spiky fire bits that I'm putting in here. It's a shame that Telemont stepped away. One of the stories I was hearing this week was, it's not new, I don't think, but it was saying that Hasbro and WotC's been really proud of the fact that the next books that they're releasing are nearly 1,000 pages. The 3 books will be nearly 1,000 pages of material. To which somebody who looked into it was like, okay, well, what was the last 3 books they did? The Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master's Guide. And they amount to about 1,000 pages. 900 and something pages. 980 pages or something like that. Something you could definitely say almost 1,000 pages. So kind of an identical claim. But Ooh, let me change this. I'm gonna have the top of this thing kind of funnel out a little bit, kind of blossom out a little bit, so that collar will hopefully not hug it so much, but actually open up a little bit. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna delete that one. Let's bring this collar shape back. So if the new books are going to be 1,000 pages, oh, I can't do that. Solo. I have to remove that selection before I start adjusting it, because you can see if the area is selected, it's locked in place. It's like a mask in Photoshop. So if I drag this piece off, those pieces will change, but the masked part will stay exactly where it was. So I have to unmask it before doing this. So even though I might like that mask selection, we'll clear it, solo, and now I'm just going to pull this material back. So it hopefully will have the kind of billowing effect I'm going for. I will tuck the bottom part back because that's the part we want to connect. Getting a real gossamer from Looney Tunes vibe from this shape. Alright, now the selection mask tool again. How are we doing? But over on Discord, I shared some character sheets of mine I found from college. Some of my D&D characters from back in the day, including a Drow elf ranger, which was my main character for the longest time. And I made a point in the character to say Drow and actually include a pronunciation guide. So you would pronounce. A lot of people say I think officially it's a Drow elf, but in my mind it was Drow. It was like it rhymed with crow, not cow. Like a crow is a is a tough animal. A cow, it was a weaker sound. I wanted to have I wanted to be Drow. And so, but to go, I went so far as to include a pronunciation guide because I had that conversation with so many of my fellow players, classmates back then. But man, my character was broken. It was back when they had a percentile number after their strength score. So the character had he was a ranger, but had an 18/86th strength. And I don't even know if that came up. I'm not sure. I can't remember. So broken. Okay, now this should blossom out a bit if I hide the original one. Yeah, we got a gap there between the two. It's not quite flowing out the way I hoped. Okay, we got to do this one more time. We'll clear the selection. That's one of the things about this, which I swear doing comics trained me for, which was the idea that so much is redoing it and redoing it and redoing it till you get it the way you like. All right, one more time. again. One thing I liked about finding that character sheet was that the character was chaotic good. It's a chaotic good drow elf. And there's been discussion lately because the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's a full edition or not, the next release of Dungeons and Dragons, they are removing some of the alignment guidance that they included. I say guidance because the rules of the game were the rules, right? It's like you get a rule book and you think, okay, these are the rules. But almost every edition of every tabletop role-playing game, somewhere in it says, these rules are a starting point and they're not the end of it. And so the rules at your table are the rules. And they give the... Unless you're playing like some sort of tournament thing, the rules of the table are basically just what the players and the dungeon master agree to. So there were a bunch of... Oh boy, there's a lot of extra pieces there we don't need. So a lot of people were kind of complaining, not a lot, a handful of people were complaining that why can't orcs be evil, and why must everything be softened? I don't know, it's a really weird... Almost all of it feels like somebody saying, you can't play this, I just want this to be my game, don't change it. Which is weird because no one has changed the version they like. Their version they like is still there. They have all the books. They can just play it. They go play version first edition, go play second edition. But for some reason they just don't want anybody to play. And then the counter argument that I've seen, or a different tack they've taken, has been that, well, if we have house rules, why do you need to change things? Which just seems like a bonkers argument to me, because if it's the thing with we have house rules, why would you need to change anything? Then that equally, if it's only just house rules, if all it ever is guidance, then who cares if you change things? Play how you want to play. Feels like a lot of complaining about why Hasbro hasn't done anything to make these guys younger. Why won't you get these players off my lawn? Front-facing vertex only. I can see going through here and adding all sorts of texture to all these torn pieces. Right now they all seem very smooth and almost machined. I can see going through and adding striations and bits of torn elements to the fabric. Let's do that now. How are we doing? Sip some coffee. How are we doing on time? 5:20. Doing great. 0 drop frames. It's coming along. I think I need to add like bracelets and trinkets and stuff. I had the in the drawing I had the hand back a little bit. Maybe I need to do that still. Like he just got done bowling. I'll put a bowling ball in there. Excuse me. I'm going to rewind that just a little bit. Take a few steps back. Go back to that kind of pose like that. I need to do more to make the forearm feel more real. It's very lumping. But I think having a lot more wispy shapes that kind of fall off the figure. Not like a Dementor, but like they shop at the same place as Dementors. Unless that's just the outfit you get as a Dementor. Like you show up on day one, and they're like, here's your tattered, wispy robes. Like they get like a voucher, they gotta go to Nazgul and things and pick up a set of shredded robes. Alright, so they need big billowing sleeves. The only way to do that is we have to build another one of those orb shapes and then extrude from it. I sketched it. I don't know if it makes any sense whatsoever. I just kind of was drawing line upon line. I don't know how I'm going to layer all those things once we get it into the program here. It's going to build some wiggle room in there. Okay, so we'll save. We will add a new sphere. We will increase its post subdivision to 6 and validate it. Take the gizmo tool and scale it up. Remesh it. Then kind of put it near position. Basically want it to be under the existing flowing bits of fabric, and then we're just going to drag it out in pieces, and hopefully it will feel a bit wispy. Oh, hello. Hello, Samuel P. Johnson. Woke me up there. But, that triumphant musical sting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this other blue bit of robes we got here. Just for a moment, just so I can see this piece. We'll give it a different color. I'm using the clay tool here to kind of build up on it a little bit. I like having these folds and things built into the clay, so when we pop shape off of it, that it will inherit all those things and feel hopefully more like fabric. But I do have to watch out for the shape of it. I probably should finish the modeling the bicep and forearm before getting too far along in this. It's always challenging to sculpt these things when you're kind of trying to sculpt the inside. You're sculpting the air inside the sleeve, not the sleeve itself. I'm not sure if anyone has a better way of doing this. This is just what I came up with when trying to create capes. It's like I started with trying to sculpt a block of clay or a sphere and just kind of mush it until it looked like a cape. And it wasn't until I was like, wait, what if I just sculpt the air under the cape and then pop the cape off of the air? So fill up that billowing space and then just pop something off of it, and then it'll have a uniform thickness like a cape should. And then I've been using that for everything, costumes and okay, let's try this now. So using the selection mask tool and the lasso tool, we'll create some torn fabric. We'll go to the far side and do the same thing. Hit solo so we can see what damage we've done for real without all the distractions. I want to remesh this thing. I should have done it before I started sketching all these things in here. And let me be sharper with some of these. You can see how you can see that kind of stretching. That tiger teeth effect you see there is all from it being too low a mesh when I started drawing on it. Like this kind of little detail we're putting in here now. We couldn't have done that then. The material just didn't have enough to it to allow me to properly draw on it. So I'm going to go through here and try to fix those mistakes if I can. Clean that mess up a little bit. Alright, so when we extract this, hopefully it will work. So the effect is there. I need to narrow it up. So I feel pretty good about the top part of it. It's rolling over the arm just right. I'm getting hints of the arm there. Like it feels like it feels like the arm is holding that cloth up, but I need to bring that cloth together and then just tighten the whole thing. Okay, so step back in time a little bit. We'll clear the selection. And let's tighten this thing up. There's a couple ways I could do this. I could actually try to mush the fabric, mush the material. Like you can either compress it horizontally on any one of the three axes, or I could drag pieces hard. Like, let's see if the move tool will do what I want it to do. Let's try that first. Because it's moving both sides of the thing, and that's not what we want. Because it won't get tighter. It's working a little bit, but actually it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think the drag tool would have been worse. Cool. I'll save. But for folks just joining, my name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which you read at middleagecomic.com. It's also on WEBTOONs and Tapas and GoComics. I also make gaming stuff. I started sculpting about, I don't know, not quite a year and a half ago. No, maybe, yeah, maybe 2 years ago now. Mostly because I just want to have sculpts of my own characters for my webcomic. And I didn't know who could sculpt them. I would have loved to have found a vendor or an artist who was able to do that for me, but didn't have any luck with that. And so I found this program called Nomad Sculpt. It's on the iPad. It's like a one-time fee of 10 or 15 bucks. It's been a while since I bought it. And it's had all the tools I need to start sculpting. And I think as a cartoonist, if you're a cartoonist, I think you might like the program a lot. It's not overly complicated. It's not super technical. It's definitely got a process to it. Like, so, you know, figuring out how to convince this program to do what you want sometimes requires thinking in reverse. Like what I'm saying with creating these sleeves, it's like I'm not creating the yes, I'm creating the sleeve, but I'm also creating the air first, the hollow. I'm creating the hollow underneath or inside the sleeve, and then creating the fabric on top of it. So that's kind of, I would say, not obvious thinking. So that's where the experience will come in handy. Like, the more you use it, the more you'll get used to things like that. But as a cartoonist, I feel like it's just right up our alley. We're so good at, we already know our characters so well. It's a lot of fun. Beats being on Twitter. And I just really wanted my figures to be made into, my characters to be made into toys. So it's kind of helped make that possible, which is awesome. One of the things as a cartoonist is you spend so much time cartooning. To me, I really like the idea of having a product that didn't require me to make it. Yeah, I mean, yes, I still have to sculpt it, and yes, I still have to find a vendor to do all that stuff, but it's just sort of like, once a book is done, you can sell that book forever. Once a sculpt is done, you can sell that sculpt forever. So it gave me one more thing to sell. And then making miniatures for D&D kind of got me into, creating D&D content, and that's taken off, and I'm reaching a whole new audience now. All the people who read my comic and want to play a drunken wizard now can. And the D&D crowd is now coming over to my comics, which is great. It's kind of what I was hoping for from the beginning. sphere. I think I have to do a couple of layers of that flowy fabric to make it feel like the sketch. But I do feel like that's one of the that's a good first pass. I do want to fill up the material underneath that so that it becomes a lot easier to print. When I first sculpted Melvin, he has big billowing cuffs, and I recognize that that would be a problem because, you know, you have real spindly arms inside a cuff, and the cuff is all hollow. How does that print? How does the inside of that thing hold together? So I end up filling the cuff up to pretty much the bicep with solid material all the way through, and then inside the cuff, kind of forced perspective stars. So big stars on the edges of the cuff, and then smaller stars, almost like you're looking into perspective. Not sure if it ever came out. Except the largest print I ever made, I don't think I ever printed one on the new printer. It's super subtle. I don't know if you'd be able to see it inside those cuffs. But not only are there stars outside, but there are stars on the inside of those cuffs. Absolutely overthinking it. And not in a productive way. Okay, so I don't hate that at all. It's pretty badass. All right, folks, I'm gonna take a quick visit to the artist's boudoir. I'll be right back. Enjoy this art show. You got some amazing artists here. Take a look. Way better than me. I'll be back in a few minutes. And I'm back. All right, how are we doing? It's 5:45. We're doing great. I'm working on this creature. This is a sort of an anti-metadomain cleric for my upcoming TTRPG book for Dungeons & Dragons. It's a Dungeons & Dragons subclass for clerics called the Metadomain. And the book itself is called The Prayer's Handbook. If you check out prayershandbook.com, that'll take you, I think, to the Kickstarter page. It was a very successful Kickstarter. The next Kickstarter I'll be doing is called Nibblemancy. It's kind of a sequel to the very first TTRPG Kickstarter I did, which was called Intoximancy. Intoximancy and Nibblemancy are taken right out of my webcomic, The Middle Age. And oh yeah, so this one should come out a little bit, shouldn't it? Pull this back a little. That way the smaller fabric on the inside will get a chance to be seen. Move tool. One of the things that's interesting about this program, I think it holds true somewhat to in Procreate as well, is that the brushes and tools inside the iPad, by and large, don't behave the way tools in Photoshop function. Like in Photoshop, you'll set up a brush and it will be 50 pixels wide. So if you're looking at the screen at 100% resolution, you draw a line, it'll be 50 pixels wide. You can count the pixels. And if you zoom out 50%, it will draw one that's 25. It will visually look like 25 pixels wide, but it'll still be 50. It'll always be the size, the number of pixels you designate, that's the number of pixels it is. Programs on the iPad work a bit differently. Like if I zoom all the way back, this brush will move the whole shape. But if I zoom in, the same exact brush will only move a small piece of it. Because the brush size is not relative to the object, it's relative to your screen. So the more you zoom in, it's a weird again, if you're used to Photoshop, it's one of the reasons why this program can be a little bit of a challenge to feel your way through. All right, maybe a little more. All right, so now we'll move these bits in a little bit as well. Why not? Smooth some stuff out. No one's going to see these bits. I'm going to remesh it. That way when I draw on it now, it should be a little bit easier to draw on. So we'll choose the selection mask tool, the lasso tool, front facing vertex only. So as I promised on Discord, a few changes are coming. Well, first of all, the Metadomain book is coming along very well. I added 3 monsters to it. You'll see those over on the Kickstarter page, and I'll share the artwork on my Patreon page as well. Maybe on Discord as well. Links in the doobly-doo. And the next project, as I mentioned, was called Nibblemancy. And what's good is that if you are a fan of Intoximancy, the previous wizard subclass I created, there will be spells inside Nibblemancy for Intoximancy. Oh my goodness. Alan! How the heck are you? Everyone please follow Alan. I think I can give you a shout out, Alan. Maybe? Hopefully I can. B-A-R-B-E-A-U. This should work, I hope. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he'll get a shit. There we go. It's going well. I'm working on a sculpt of a evil cleric. And this is for the metadomain book that was recently funded. Everyone really should check out Alan's work. It is lovely. They've posted some work over in the Discord. Again, links in the doobly-doo. All ballpoint pen. Stunning. Really wonderful fantasy artwork. It feels a little old school, but it's definitely modern. It's not retro. It's just I don't know. You can kind of, it's got a, I don't know. You can almost feel the history of the drawing in it. Like it's got, like it loves the older stuff, but it's not, you know, it doesn't feel like an homage or somebody doing something retro. It feels modern, but clearly digs the old stuff. So really cool. And promises to be a project that we can all buy at some point soon. But I am working on this. I'm changing up my streaming schedule. It had been Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 7, but I'll be mixing it up and more impromptu, I think. At least for the time being, at least through the month of February. I think in March I'll come back. I'm going to change all this interface stuff up. It's been a hodgepodge since I launched, and 2024 is a year I'm kind of going full cartoony RPG freelance. I've been hesitant. I've been freelancing for 25 years, doing a lot of commercial work, web design stuff, but always never putting all my eggs in one basket because I've been terrified. But as I don't know, it becomes a lot easier when baskets just start exploding. When you just have one basket left, it's a lot easier to put all your eggs in that last remaining basket. So I the RPG work I've been doing has been so well received, and you know, in my webcomic, The Middle Age, has been so well received. And I feel so good about both of them. I know it's probably dooming myself. I'm going to devote more time to them. I'm still going to do educational educational comics projects as they present themselves, because I do find that work very rewarding. But this year is going to be a bunch of Kickstarters. My Patreon support's growing. Thank you, Patreon supporters. And I just love doing this work. It's silly. It's fun. And having raids from folks like you, it certainly makes my life and Dave a lot better. That's great. I mean, the big question mark hanging over this year for the kind of work I do, which is all based on 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, is like, what does Hasbro do with Dungeons & Dragons? I mean, 5th edition I feel is okay. It's going to be all right. But one of the reasons why my projects do well is that a lot of people play modern D&D. Thank you, Critical Role. Thank you, Stranger Things. So what happens if people... If that is a fad that ends, or if that market becomes really oversaturated, or if something happens to Kickstarter or crowdfunding or the global economy, or, you know, a million other things. So many things can go wrong. I want to hide that basic piece there, and we'll see how this looks. Not terrible. Not great, though. Undo, undo. I'm going to clear the selection mask. Hit the whole thing with the smooth function. Basically, it's a big smoothing tool that will go run over the whole surface and smooth things out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clay tool here and subtract and just try to thin out the bottom of this thing. So like ideally it should come to almost a point. And I'll use the trim tool and just cut that off. Remesh. Yeah, so a lot of this year, that's what's really fun about comics, is that they're not dependent on a system. So if 5th edition D&D goes away, people can still read my comics. I found that at GameholeCon, that convention in Wisconsin that I exhibited at. Someone would come up and they'd say, "Oh, this looks really cool," and I'm like, "Okay, it's for 5th edition D&D," and they're like, "Well, we don't play 5th edition. Do you have a Pathfinder version or a Morkborg version?" And to me, that's like, but then I said, "No, but I do have these comics, and they're not, as long as you can read English. English is its operating system." And then I sold some books. So I love comics for that reason. But for now, this has been a lot of fun. And the audience has been very kind. And I'm having so much fun with the Metadomain Cleric. The book is largely, it is mostly done. I'm going through and adding stuff to it. One of the things I didn't have, but I had in the previous books, if you've seen Intoximancy or Death Dealing, they had illustrations throughout them. I try to make sure there's illustration. Every spread of the book should have some nice piece of artwork. I didn't want it to be a page of just text and charts and stuff like that. I liked it. There's a couple of those. Just you can't help it. If it's like 2 really important charts, they'll fill up the page. Maybe there's a little spot illustration or something. But it was, I like to have lots of art in there. In this case with the metadomain, because it's such a weird subclass, I wanted to have, in social media, I shared some of the artwork and included a caption in the tweet or in the Facebook post or whatever, kind of describing who this metadomain cleric is and what they believe, and it added a lot of flavor to the illustration, like comics do. It was like the words and pictures made each other better. And so instead of treating some of these illustrations as purely illustrative inside the book, I'm going to include captions for them that aren't simply, this is a metadomain cleric or whatever, this is them casting a spell. It's going to be more like, this is who this metadomain cleric is and what they think, who they think their player is. Because a metadomain cleric is a cleric who thinks this is all just a game. And at level 8, they learn their player's name and they can invoke it for extra effects. Things like that. It's really trippy and fun. Not for beginner players, I'd say. But these captions, I think, will help players feel their way through the class and hopefully cook up their own spin on this. And I'm really happy with that. That's a really big deal. And also in Intoximancy, throughout the book, there's all these illustrations, like I said, but there's also, to fill up space and kind of as a design element, there are like wine stain rings and ale stain rings. So like someone put a wet drink down on the paper, and so the whole book looks like not like parchment. I didn't want it to look like parchment because that's too crufty. That's too. It's been done to death, but I still like that texture. So what I did was I made it grayscale, so it's still there, but it's not the same thing. It's definitely one step removed, which I liked a lot. So it was cleaner. Everything didn't look beige. It didn't have that quality all over the whole thing. It still feels crisp and bright. So it's got that crispness and that brightness, and then had these drink rings on it. Death Dealing didn't have that. I included a couple little cards sliding in here and there to kind of, but this one I want to do is I want to have that same bright, crisp background, but then notes as if the mad cleric who's jotting down things, or maybe it's a bit of like a sort of alchemical grid map, or like a astrological chart that has meta qualities about it, like it's a D20 instead of a like a D20 has rings around it like Saturn, that sort of thing, or like one of those heliocentric or terracentric maps of the universe with kind of concentric circles and things like that, but it's all got like dice in it. So those things accent the pages, and then there's also kind of little handwritten notes, which so far relate to what's on the page. Whenever possible, relate to what's on the page, and not just occasionally it's just like a bit of flavored, weird question. But I think it's really it's going to feel holistic. I think integrated and hopefully deep. Or it will fall flat on its face somewhere in that. But I'm very excited. I don't know if you can tell. But if anyone wants to get queued up for the next one I'm doing, in Nibblemancy, that page is already live. If you go to nibblemancy.com, that'll take you to the Kickstarter's page where you can queue up to be notified when it goes live. And I think 140 something people have already queued up, which is awesome. And that's the hope, is to have one, deliver that, people like it, deliver another one, and just keep going. And because I'm certain there's a lot of people who never saw my first campaigns. So that's kind of what I think about each one of these new campaigns, is a chance to reintroduce myself every time. And then everyone who backs one of my Kickstarters, I automatically email them. I send them a copy of my comic as a PDF. So hopefully it'll make more readers that way too. Something fun I just posted onto, hopefully fun, I just posted onto Discord, was a character sheet of mine from the 1980s. My Drow Elf Ranger character. Okay, that's a much sharper point there. Hopefully this will work better. So we will save, just because I really like the progress so far. And then I'm going to extract from that. I'm going to bring the thickness down a little bit. I'm going to turn off that sphere, which is kind of the form upon which we are extracting all this stuff. Pretty good. Has some character to it. I feel like I want to somehow pinch this shape together. We just talked about this a second ago. The idea that there would be, let me pull that back a little bit there. Oopsie. A solo. I'm just going to cut through this whole shape. I'm going to remesh this and smooth out the top of that. I didn't recall that being so torn up. So I want to fill the inside of that with part of that sphere we'd created. So I'm going to clone that, hide the original, clear the selection mask, and then using the trim tool, so that piece should be solid inside there. And hopefully, if I fuse those two pieces together... Alan, I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here, and thank you for rating. And thank you all of Alan's friends and fans. I really appreciate you being here. Good night, Alan. Thanks again for posting. Post new stuff in the Discord. I'd love to see more stuff. All right, I'm going to try to separate this. If it's a complicated piece, like you can see that large element there, but when I select everything else, you see all these tiny fragments. I don't know if you can see them all. There are these tiny fragments where pieces that are trying to fuse together have little orphaned elements. And so it's sort of like a group in Illustrator where you've grouped all these objects together. When you ungroup them, you can deselect one and it'll just leave everything else selected. And that's what we're seeing here. And I'm going to delete all of them. All those straight pieces don't add anything to the sculpt. I used to try to use the smooth tool and kind of burnish them into the shape, kind of fuse them to the larger shape, but it's just easier to separate them and then delete them. Save the pieces you want and delete everything else. So I have fused the shape that kind of we molded this whole thing on and that together. This piece really won't matter, that kind of lumpen element. That's going to be inside and connected inside the torso and inside the chest. So we have this outside sleeve, which I'm going to bring in a little bit so we can see some of the other elements. And try to bring out some of these other pieces. Try to keep the sense of layering somehow if I can. Oh, for the love of... Well, hello. I really appreciate that, Noel. I think that's someone over on the YouTubes. We are streaming to YouTube and to Twitch. So I appreciate you all on whatever platform you're here on. Sometimes if you see a comment, you might not see it in the chat on YouTube. If someone in Twitch is talking, you won't see it in YouTube's chat, and someone in YouTube's chat, you won't see it in Twitch. But that stream, that bit below us will kind of compile them all together, so you'll each be able to see, hopefully, bits and pieces of the other conversations. For the longest time, Twitch didn't allow this if you were in their affiliate level, but they relaxed that at the end of last year a bit, and so I was happy to be back on multiple platforms. That's something I talk about with the webcomics all the time, is don't be beholden to a single platform, because a platform can go away. You know, the idea being that, you know, MySpace or Friendster, all these various platforms that existed that had massive followings, and that was the place to be, and really people built up their audiences, and they're, you know, someone had a whole lot of followers on MySpace and was like, they felt really good about that. And, you know, I won't write an old platform off, because it can always come back. I mean, LinkedIn is back in a way that I never thought it would have been. MySpace had a second life as a as kind of a music site. But there's a lot of people with Twitter followers, and they've given up that whole platform because of, you know, nonsense. It's so rough. Oh my goodness. Hey, MJ Builds. So a lot of people are just like, you know, a lot of cartoonists, a lot of content creators, people who want to make game stuff or sculpting or fan art or whatever. They're all just trying to chase an audience somewhere, and they're like, oh, it's got to go here to promote, got to go there to promote. It's exhausting. And by the time somebody has that figured out, all the marketing weasels will have also figured it out. And so because the marketing weasels are all over the thing, then the platform has to defend itself from all the marketing weasels, and next thing you know, we can't get any attention. I see people post beautiful artwork, awesome artwork. I'll share it, I will like it, I will comment, and, you know, 3 likes, 4 likes, it gets no traction, can't make sense of it. And then they post a picture of their cat, and they get 500 likes. I swear there are some people who post a picture. This happened to me. I was taking a photograph of one of my books, and my cat jumps on the table, mostly to be an annoying nudge, because that's what he does. That's kind of his thing. And he's like, "Oh, you need sunlight? Let me get in the way of that." And I took a photograph of him. It was really adorable because he's just a jerk. And I'm like, "Oh, I should do this with all my books." People they don't care about the book. They just like that the cat is being a jerk. But then, I don't know, social media just makes some people just so, they just seem so desperate or thirsty for likes and upvotes. I can't blame them. Just want validation for all the stuff we're doing. But my streaming schedule will be less fixed. I'm glad folks are subscribing. I do appreciate it and following me. I do really appreciate that. Because as my schedule gets a little more where's the trim tool? As it gets a little less set, as I'm playing it more by ear, subscribing is the best way to be notified when I go live. Or if you join the Discord is mostly, I think it's like 90 people, and I'll, you know, we share our artwork, we promote our projects, we talk about D&D and talk about webcomics and stuff like that, and then whatever else comes to mind. You know, that's a great way to find out when I'm going live on whatever platform. But I think shorter streams where maybe occasionally, like if I'm doing something like this, sculpting something particularly complicated or working on a particular illustration, I think just popping in for an hour and making it spontaneous and not making this thing where I'm like, oh, it's regimented. I don't really, you know, I don't think people are building their week around me. And that's also could be self-fulfilling. Like maybe if I did this every day, like I kind of did it twice a week for a year and a half, and it's nice. I'm certain I got more supporters on my Kickstarters for it, and met some lovely people like Alan. But I feel like it's kind of getting in the way of my productivity right now, and that's where I have to kind of reevaluate and also change the layout of this whole thing. Originally, when I was launching this, I thought, okay, I'm going to treat this more like it's like a TV show, because I thought I myself am not entertaining enough for anybody to watch. So I thought, okay, it's 4 hours. We're going to do something for the first hour. We're going to do something. We're going to do a quick thing at the we'll take a break. Then we'll take a little half-hour thing or 20-minute thing where we talk about a specific subject, and then that's a piece that I could break out and make as a standalone thing over on YouTube. So the whole thing was, how can I work on this stream and find a way to slice and dice? Oh, thanks, MJ. I'm sorry about your internet. But I thought about, like, going into it is like, how can I slice and dice this thing into something useful? The one thing that I didn't expect when I started streaming 2 years ago or so was the idea the AI would come in so heavily. Like, the last convention I was at, somebody was like, well, your work uses AI, right? I'm like, bite your tongue. Bite your evil demon tongue that you would even suggest that. But I just like that I have if you want to know, no AI made this silly thing I'm making here. If you want to just check out YouTube, they've got an archive of all the nonsense I've built. So it's nice that there's a pedigree of, like, or not a pedigree, I don't know, a statement of work or something like that. Kind of some sort of what do they call it? Pedigree is one word for it. There's at least evidence that a human did this, because AI just gets me furious, and the main reason is that the people who argue for it are just doing it for cash, and it just angers me. I saw currently it's Zine Quest. I totally recommend people go to Kickstarter and go to BackerKit and check out all the awesome zines. If you like role-playing games, if you like games in general, it doesn't have to be D&D. Just any games. People are making these like $6 PDFs and $2 PDFs of a standalone game that you get this PDF and it gives you everything you need to play a game by yourself, an adventure. Crazy fun, awesome rules, and you can check them all out. But Kickstarter allows AI work, allows AI, because they're not just an art platform, they are a technology platform. And there are technological applications of AI. And so they can't, I don't think, as a platform, say no AI, because AI has got uses. My 3D printer has an AI element that detects when filament isn't printing properly, isn't connecting. Like, if it doesn't connect, it starts doing what's called spaghetti, which it just starts spitting filament out. That they call it AI, that function will stop the print and send me a text on my phone, an alert to say, hey, there's something wrong with the print. What do you want to do? Do we keep going or do we stop? Which is great, because it could say, because I could come back and there could be a bird's nest inside the printer of just like stray filament. So yes, AI applications, it absolutely functions for it. That are like, that people have said that AI is so much better at diagnosing certain ailments that we cannot detect, because they can analyze things and piece things together in a way that we can't. Yes, but when it comes to the creative fields, one thing is a technical, the other thing is creative. And I know there's a technical aspect to creativity. Absolutely. I mean, all of this is plugged into something. But the idea that the play, the fun, the weirdness of this would somehow be that you can, in a year's time, you could just say, give me a 3D model of a corrupt cleric holding a book, wearing tatters, and it would produce 15 options for you to choose from. And 3 of them might be better than this. All of them are imitating this and imitating all the other 3D models that are out there. They're feeding on the things that will cease to exist if they succeed. It is cannibalism. It is a voracious cannibalism. Like, where do the Borg go once they've assimilated everything? What did they do? Is to stare at each other, make larger cubes. That feels like where it's going. And like I feel like all those things are imitating the work of real artists. And so platforms like Kickstarter, which are there ostensibly in part to support artistic endeavors, are encouraging the use of systems that put those artists out of existence. And it's tough because then you got people like me who have a brand, who have a successful career, who are kind of ahead of the curve. It's not about us. It's about the people who are starting now and have to compete with this garbage. There's a Kickstarter going on right now, and they say, oh yeah, we use AI, but we're using AI, but we're feeding it with like classic art. And that's exactly part of the problem. They're dodging the question now because part of the big thing everyone's talking about, well, it steals art, it steals art, it steals art. Yes, stealing, and we can all go stealing's bad. Sure. After decades of us scoffing at the film industry and record industry and stuff like that, everyone with their torrents and their, mocking the piracy videos, and so suddenly it's affecting the artists. We're like, well, they're stealing from us. They're stealing from us. But that's not the argument. I don't think you can make the argument because they could just rip off Rembrandt, or Creative Commons Zero stuff, like stuff that's in the public domain. That doesn't make it any more ethical. To me, the stealing is, yes, the stealing part's bad, but it's only part of what's bad. The bigger part of what's bad is it's non-creative garbage. It's someone going to a diner, ordering the chef's special, getting served whatever that is, taking a photograph of it and saying, look what I made. It's awful. And making that the basis of a cooking show. All of my complaints go away. Give me universal basic income and all my complaints go away. But also, if you gave everyone universal basic income, AI would go away. Because there's no reason for it, except for fun. Having it as a fun thing that you just do, hey, look at this goofy thing I made, and sharing it as a fun thing for no money that doesn't impact the careers of artists, that doesn't cut off fledgling creators at the knees. Yeah, I'm all about it. There's a goof? Sure. It's a great little goof. But as something that you want to make money from on your Kickstarter, to hell with you. You want money from me, but you're not willing to pay artists. To hell. Okay, soapbox. I'm off the soapbox. People can come back. You can turn your speakers back on. Did everyone leave? Oh. I'm like, don't get me started, then I get myself started. I'm sorry. You deserve better than that. Like the world isn't fakakta enough without me griping. Turning on a little space heater. So every one of the books I do, whether it's Intoximancy or Death Dealing, I include a villain. I include creatures in the book, because if you ever played Dungeons and Dragons, a subclass is a Jamar. Intoximancy and everyone. Jamar Nicholas is a delight. What a guy. If you don't know Jamar Nicholas, you do. You really do. You know it. You just don't know it. Creator of Leon the Extraordinary, a Scholastic Graphics blockbuster graphic novel. It will be a Macy's Day balloon. You will see a Leon balloon in your lifetime, and you'll be like, ah, I saw that guy. He was in a chat I was in. He is a delightful person and has a stream this evening. If you go to Pencil to Pencil, Pencil to Pencil on the YouTubes, you can see at, I believe it's at 9 p.m. East Coast time, holds court, and talks with the rank and file, and just a delightful person. 9 p.m. Eastern time. And Jumping Mouse, I've got your post-it, so I know the name. It's actually, I have one post-it note on my. I got two post-it notes on my computer. One is translating. It says, I mostly view creative in Twitch. I agree with what you're saying about AI. Oh, that's awesome. I'll be nice just this month. Just this month. And I'll go back to being my normal bastardly self. Jamar is an amazing person. And Pencil to Pencil, folks who wonder where it is, 1/3 of the triumvirate. The beating heart of the Voltron that is Pencil to Pencil. Mike Manley was under the weather, and he's getting back on his feet. And so when he is back, we will come back in full force. But each one of the books I've made, Intoximancy and Death Dealing, has a villain. Basically, the idea is like a nemesis for the subclass. Because I was saying before that each one of these books is a subclass. If you play D&D 5e, a subclass is kind of a half page or a full page in the book. The idea that I'm selling a 32-page book with a subclass in it means I'm padding some of it. It's got all sorts of other cool features, like every one of these subclasses gets a magic item that levels up with them. And there's new spells and monsters and magic items. But the monsters, I've included sort of a nemesis, a main villain that could go against the class. In this case, it is a very disheartened, cynical metadomain cleric. Someone who thinks this is all a game, this game sucks, and let's end it. And it is a nihilistic person who kind of wants to either end the world or free themselves from the game. Again, very Moriarty from the Star Trek The Next Generation. And so that's who this guy is. And so that's why he has the magic book, just like he has the Prayer's Handbook, just like all the other metadomain clerics. But in this case, tatters. So it's still going to have that D20 symbol hanging from a chain from their neck. But I'm having fun with this figure. It's very... ever tried a solo RPG system? I've never tried them. I've wanted to, and I know the Star Trek just came out with a bunch of them. They're over on Drive-Thru RPG, but I have just ordered a couple from Zine Quest this month. There's one called Grotten, Grotten, out of Europe. I forget exactly where. But the aesthetic of it, do check it out. Please check it out. I think the PDF is $6 or something like that. It is all 1-bit. It's black and white, very pixelated, and the idea is you've got little cards. A subscriber, and that animation, Jamar, that's a Chris Bailey. That's what that is. But Grotten, check it out. It is a I shared some of that. There's basically the first couple of episodes of The Middle Age are going to be animated. But that run cycle, I turned into that thing. Check out Grotten. It is a 1-bit thing. It has all this stuff I can't really talk about just yet, but it's like later on this year there'll be an Astounding Space Thrills Kickstarter, and there's stuff in the works. It's gonna be a good year. 2024 is gonna be a great year. But where was I? I don't know where I was. Either way, roll. I don't know what I'm talking about. But the schedule here is going to be a little bit off. Like, is right. Okay. But the stream here is going to be a little bit irregular, starting next week. The month of February is going to be, I might be offline most of this month as I wrap up the Metadomain Cleric, and as I work on Nibblemancy, setting that up for launch later at the end of the month. Possibly when that launches, I'll come back on Twitch, and we might do like an hour more times a week. I'd like to be there in the evening. Just doing a 3-hour block is very tough to build my day around. Tuesdays and Thursdays have been super difficult for me if I have a client call, or if I've got to run the cats to the vet. God forbid I need a haircut or an eyeglass appointment. Everything gets thrown off. I'm building my week around the Twitch schedule, and that seems wrong. Also, because I'm juggling so many plates right now. Is that what you do with plates? because I'm spinning so many balls right now. Reported, I understand. It's just difficult to manage the Twitch schedule. So, well, do what I can. Thank you everyone for following and subscribing. I expect to be on just as many hours, just not a set schedule. And hopefully more fun. And hopefully we could raid more people if we show up at that spin all the ball, spin the balls. That will be my pause, Jamar. If I say anything with more than a single entendre, I will add reported to it. Okay, where are we? Where is the sphere? There's no other word for it. It's a sphere. There we go. So again, the idea with these sleeves and things like that and capes, we're not building the sleeve, we're building the air within the sleeve. So you build the air and then you pop the sleeve off from the air that you've created, and it creates a nice even thickness of material. And so it looks more like fabric, it acts more like fabric. You can build folds into the air, and then when you pop the fabric out, it inherits those folds and it looks great. Again, for all I know, there's a better way to do it. This is just the way I've cooked up, and I like it. I'm going to change the color of this so it's a little easier to see. I have been re-watching Star Trek Picard Season 3. I tried to watch Season 1 and 2 again. They're just so dry. They're just so dry. But boy, Season 3 is amazing. It just won like every award in the Saturn Awards. I didn't even know people took the Saturn Awards seriously. And then I'm like, oh, that's the entire cast of everything. And that's Jodie Foster. And that's like, what? That's pretty great. But if you haven't seen Season 3, if you gotta just watch one, just watch Season 3. It's really great. And every once in a while, all the seasons are on sale on the various systems like iTunes, and I think I picked up all 3 seasons for $30, and so worth it. Absolutely worth it. Season 3 alone is just awesome. And yes, it's a lot of fan service, but you know, I'm okay with that. If it's good. How do I feel about physical media? I like it. I like it if I could get it. If it's available. Okay, so I didn't even know that Pluto was turned into an animated series. No idea. Maybe my favorite comic series of the last 10 years. It's Naoki Urasawa, and co-written with his, I guess their editor, collaborator, drawing a blank on the collaborator, but it's based on Astro Boy, and is the last comic graphic novel series I read that just blew me away. Apart from Urasawa's sequel, Bat Boy, which I've only found bootlegged translations of, which again blows my mind. But Pluto is such an amazing graphic novel, and if you don't like manga, don't worry. The art style kind of meets Western audiences halfway. And it is stunning. It is great. It's the last comic I read that made me cry. it is just, it's moving. It is tense. It is quiet. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And the idea that they turned it into an anime, I had no idea about it, because I dropped Netflix when they started doing that weirdness with, you know, if someone in your household isn't at the same IP address, they start being jerks. So I'm like, screw you. You guys don't know what you don't know what a 21st century family looks like. So, but man, I got to come back for that. But if they have that on DVD or Blu-ray or something like that, or if they release Pluto on a system that I don't have, I will buy that system to watch that. And Leon made me cry. Yeah, I it's reason to come back. My plan is right now, I was waiting for next season of Stranger Things. I'll get it for a month, I'll dip in, I'll consume everything, and then I'll dip out again. That's kind of how I handle these systems now. But man, Pluto is it's got me thinking about coming back in there. I was having a conversation with some people about, like, I said, like, you know, as I'm writing the my webcomic, middleagecomic.com, that, like, there are sections of it where I'm crying, like, it's moving me. It's a stupid comic about a sword and an evil sword and a dumb knight, and the knight's in love with a dragon, has a magic sword that hates him, and there's, you know, little baby dragons and a lord of all ducks. But there are sections of it that are damn moving, and I want them to be moving, and they put me in a place where, you know, this stuff is moving me as I'm writing it, and I'm like, I'm writing it in a coffee shop, and I'm like, you know, I'm like trying to hold my emotions in, you know, because I feel like I look like a lunatic, but it gets me, because I really feel like when we feel it when we're drawing it, or when we feel it when we're writing it, that more of it gets through. I think more of it finds its way onto the page. Or I'm just an old crazy man. Or both. One is not dispositive of the other. But I think there's something like, oh, you know, if I have human emotions, I'm supposed to rescind my man card or something like that. So I'm going to build some folds into the cape, into the sleeve before I start extruding the sleeves out of it. I got to fix that part there. I'm just going to drag that up a little bit so you can see a little more of that fold. That way these pieces will, I don't know, further hopefully sell the idea of layer upon layer of tattered fabric. No pressure from me. If it moves you, you're doing it right. I think that's how I feel. I think I feel like a lot of stuff is done in a cold, scientific, laboratory way. There are a lot of properties that seem to be made as a calculation to chase a market. I talked about this the other day, about, because there was a clip from a musician that was going around about how it had to move them, otherwise it wouldn't matter. And it was like, that was the thing I said, like, it took me 45 years to realize that if anybody else could do it, not that they couldn't do it, if anybody else, if I'm not saying something from the heart, if I'm not saying something from me and my perspective, even if my perspective is maybe a very vanilla perspective, if I'm not saying something from my lived experience in a way that comes from where I'm at right now, then what am I doing? If anybody else could have said it, why say it? If anyone else has said it, why say it? And a lot of people are just doing it to do it, and I don't get that anymore. And I tried to do that for a while. I was trying to speak with other people's voices, or try to, I don't know, or I hadn't found it yet, or I hadn't had the hadn't found the surrender to do it. Like, I feel like it wasn't like it wasn't like a moment of strength. It was a moment of giving up, and like, all right, I'll just do what makes me laugh. And damn it, if that's not when Eisner nominations and Ringo nominations and NCS nominations didn't come up. As soon as I decided, let me just do my stupid thing my stupid way. So is there anyone else you can't do all those middle-aged and 5e Kickstarter stuff on stream? Yes, because it's writing. If it's writing, I can't do it on stream. Yeah, that's the Cave. That's the main reason. It's like, also, I can't structure it that way. To me, it's partly the structure. It's not that I can't do it. Like, I spent time. Let me show you some other things I was working on before we wrap up here. I was sculpting the Hydrahedron, and I was beating my head against a wall because I had no solution for it, and I basically had to fumble through it. And this part of it is just sort of like shutting out all the outside voices and just focusing. And oh, thanks, Shamar. Just shutting out all the outside voices, and this chat is outside voices, and that's part of it. Is that it's like, it's great. I love it. This is as close to community as I get in my little cramped, second bedroom. But some of this isn't collaborative, and some of this isn't something that can be sidetracked on. And I move half speed. I just have to. I mean, because I want to pay attention to everybody, because I'm partly is to talk with everybody and to see everybody. And so one of the things I realized, one of the epiphanies, it's a recurring theme in the metadomain subclass. The epiphanies page, by the way, is 2 pages inside the book, and they're freaking, I'm so happy with them. Hopefully you like them too. The epiphanies are metadomain subclass. Again, you're a cleric and you think this is all a game. I've made a level by level, all the way to level 20. Who knows if you're ever going to play that far. But these are meant to be springboards for your own role playing. Whether you use them all the way to level 20 or you just condense them as you feel like it. But certain ones are key to the character class. At level 8, they learn their player's name. At level 1, you think this all might be a game. Basically helping you through your understanding as your mind is opening to what the possibilities are. The fact that even though you might be going crazy, and that you are a cleric in a fantasy setting who thinks it all might be a game, you're nuts. You're kind of cuckoo bananas, because it's really up to the dungeon master whether this is all a game or not. You know, it really is up to them whether the game is a game or the game is real life. So it's weird, it's dumb. I knew going into this was going to be a place where it's going to be this kind of Lagrange point between reality and fantasy. But these epiphanies at level 2, there's some simple things like you start hearing music during combat. No one else seems to be able to hear it. Like you start hearing action music during combat. No one else seems to be able to hear it. It's things like that. And then at some point you realize by level 10, you realize, okay, you have a player and the player is controlling you. Or maybe you're controlling them. Or maybe it's a partnership. But at level 10, you realize there's an adversary. There's somebody working against the player. And at level, one of the, level 3 I really like is because it asks that we start getting real philosophy into it, which is the problem of evil. Which, if you're a cleric, there's players. If there's players controlling you, why all the hardship in the world? Why all the things you have to face? It's a problem. It's a philosophical problem. The problem of evil. And so, if there's players controlling you, why don't you have 18 in every stat? Why can't you be immune to disease? And why can't you? Why are all these monsters? What is the plan here? So it's super fun. It's super fun. I think it's fun. Hopefully people will feel like it's worth the $5 they spent for the PDF. Corporate sponsors rather than players. And so one of the things I realized was the Intoximancy book, if you've seen it, there's a bunch of Flagonborn. There's the Hobgoblet, there's the Tankard, there's the Great Red Flagon, Brokenstein's monster, a bunch of drinking vessel themed monsters. So I decided there would be book themed monsters because there are, and I think the coffee shop I was sculpting this in, I think they looked at me very funny. I think someone might have looked over my shoulder and go, "What is this wacko doing?" But there are book themed monsters in this one, and there's 3 of them so far. There's that guy. This guy. And this one, which is not done yet. I think I'm adding a scorpion's tail to it. And I had never sculpted fur before, so trying to create that kind of hair effect on the legs was something I had until I sculpted the Grognard's cape and loincloth, which was all meant to be just a nod to like He-Man and the ridiculousness of fur garb. But having that ability now made it a lot easier to sculpt this guy. So, but I realized I want to give him a scorpion's tail that comes up around the back, so I got to sculpt that maybe tonight or tomorrow. But I'm very close to finishing most of the artwork for the book. There's a few spot illustrations and a couple of little bits on the side. But anyway, that's how those are coming along. But I still have to finish sculpting this guy. Oh, and that giant Hydrahedron, the faceted dragon, multi-headed dragon thing. I can show you that. All right, let me make sure this guy, he's saved, he's good. Gosh, the numbers in the upper left there are deep red, which means this thing is pushing the memory limits of the iPad. Spinning minis. This is the painted version so far of the Hydrahedron. And I'm going through and putting numbers on every facet. So, like I said, this is a thing where I have to put on a 2-hour movie, maybe Marvels or something, and just fill in all these numbers. And I'm putting them in black first, and then I'm going to try to make them look a little bit embossed using some simple, 2 pixels left, 2 pixels right, a little like that. And then I still have to do the egg, because the egg is meant to be, like you have your mini on the table, a D20 should satisfy the requirement of being an egg of this thing. And so the D20 hatches, and then 1 to 20 little snake-like things come out. Part of me thought, do I create a stamp with 1 through 20 and go into that Hydrahedron sculpt? Currently what I did was, because there's no low poly version of Nomad Sculpt, low poly kind of like a Minecraft sculptural approach. There's no low poly setting. All I could do is reduce the quality of the sculpt to the point where it starts to fall apart. And I'm like lowering it. I didn't even know there was a minimum, and I found it's 5. The lowest number you can put in when you remesh something is 5. Fun to know. But then it created this shape. So if I want to stamp something in it, not only do I have to get that perfectly right, I got to get the shape just right, and then remesh something that is super simple way high just so I can stamp something in there, and I would stamp in those numbers on every facet. And I thought, I have a life. I have other Kickstarters to do. If I've got 20 more years of life in me, I'd spend most of it stamping numbers into this hydrohedron, just so I could print it out of a 3D printer and rub crayon in there. Fun. I was just about to say that exactly. I was picturing like the alien eggs that pop open, but I really want them to be to scale, so someone could just put the standard D20 next to. Because I thought when I was doing this one, I'm like, oh, do I have time to find a vendor who can sculpt a little snake thing, a little snake monster, kind of a Gua'uld, classic reference everybody gets, a Gua'uld symbiote, and have that inside the D20 so you can kind of see it inside the D20. Oh boy. Nerd. They might take my man card, but they're never taking my nerd card. I reckon if you could unwrap each polygon individually, that would allow you for quicker number placements. I would think so. I think I could. Well, what do we got to lose? All right. Change it to matte cap, just so we have a kind of a... You can see where I basically painted in some colors. I accidentally put this pink color on the gums and inside the different parts. Totally accidental. I had to paint it all out when I got to it. But let's say we take this foot, and it is resolution of 10. Which, if you've used this program, you know that's insanely low. But I think if I mesh it up to where it should be, around 500, it will keep these facets. Let's do 420 for the keep sharp edges, remesh. So it should look exactly the same, but now allow us to do more fun things with it. So I could stamp alpha. I don't think I have a simple symbol in here. I've got lots of complicated symbols. Fine. We'll stamp the middle age logo into it. Fall off, custom, nice and low. Low flat tables for stamps. That's how they work best. We'll undo that. We'll turn symmetry off because God knows where the other part of that is. Is that protruding? It is protruding. So we want it subtracting. So it's a very complicated shape. If I increase the intensity of it, it would dig it in deeper. So I could put 3s and 4s and all the numbers in there. Oof. A lot of work. Undo, undo, undo. Could be done. And then I made the thing stop. All right. Well, we knew that was going to happen. I told you it was pushing the memory limit of the thing. Restarting it's a nice thing to happen every once in a while. All right, and we're back. So, just like when we did the... once we started doing the 3D sculpts of the Buzzkill and the Kegger, those were never meant to be sculpts. Those were always going to be... they were never meant to be printable models. They were only meant to be reference for illustrations. And now that when I'm making these illustrations, references for illustrations, I'm thinking about them as being printable models as well. So it's kind of hamstringing me a little bit because I'm like, the models would be more interesting if they didn't have to be printable. I could defy gravity a bit more and things like that. But I'm always thinking about the printability of the thing. Less so with this guy. I don't know how you print these sleeves, so screw it. That's future printers' problem. But I think it's coming along. We made a lot of progress today. I feel like I want there to be more torn elements inside there. Like this part feels really plain to me right in there. I would want there to be a like more of a, oh, hello, select the right thing. Another layer of material back there, just to give it a little more life. It seems a little plain. But then once the D20 shape is here, you know, hanging from a chain, I think that's going to add enough life there. But we're getting there. That I don't think in the drawing you can see this kind of this plume kind of fabric. I don't think I'm going to add that much because I like the idea of being able to hint at the knee and the figure underneath the robes. Because I mean, I put all that time and effort into the muscularity. But that sleeve is coming along well. I also think I need to do maybe a bit more of a torn fabric here. And I can just pop that off of the sleeve itself. I don't need to create another element for that. And the thing is, if it looks corroded, I'm okay with it because it's meant to be this kind of, you know, Dementor, Nazgul kind of thing. But I can't thank you all enough for being here. Jamar, so good to see you. Cave, good to see you. Faden, and brief appearance by Telemont. Do check out Nibblemancy. That's my next one. That's the next project that'll be out. You can pre-order. If you missed it, you can pre-order if you go to prayershandbook.com. You can check out the backer kit page for ordering physical stuff. I don't think you can order the digital stuff that way, but you can pre-order the digital stuff from my website if you go to steveconley.com. But I'm going to work on this some more. I'm going to drink more coffee. But I'll figure out my streaming schedule. For all I know, I'll be back here on Tuesday. But do follow, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Check out Pencil to Pencil tonight at 9 p.m. to catch Jamar Nicholas. And you will see for yourself with your own eyes that he is as magnificent as I have described. And but let's go raid somebody. I'm not sure who's up at this hour. I'm also, by not streaming until 8 o'clock at night, I missed the ability to raid folks like Shane. But I gotta load Chrome here to see who's on Twitch, and that will make my computer explode. How we doing on everything else? Okay, so Twitch. YouTube, you're not going to understand what I'm saying here, but we're going to go raid somebody. And raiding is in Twitch parlance. We are going to go visit, all of us are going to go to somebody else's channel, and we're going to hang out there, just like Alan did with us. Thank you again, Alan. I appreciate it. Do check out Alan's work over on the Discord server. He does all his fantasy work in ballpoint pen, and it's amazing. It's stunning. It's so good. Where do we go? Steve Najarian. Let's go check him out. What's he working on? Back from MegaCon. Sure, let's do it. Let me see, we're gonna... All right, folks, have a lovely weekend. Hopefully we'll see you all on Tuesday. David, nice to see you. We're gonna go raid Steve Nigerian. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Welcome everyone that came in on the raid. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is also Steven.